Now in the world of Super Mario, you are constantly fighting all kinds of different elemental forces that try to kill you. Stuff like fire and lava, which we see in a lot of castles, water which we need to swim through, and air where we sometimes fly around using power-ups. However, while we encounter this a lot in the games, we also come across enemies that use such powers to take us out. And a great example of this is the Foosh.
Ah, there he goes again, talking about something no one cares about. This man is running out of ideas, I swear.
Ah, how refreshing. I love those comments. Now, you might think enemies like this are useless and not worth covering. However, you would be surprised how much they changed and how important their role actually is in the game. So let's dive into all of this straight away in order to find out how they evolved in terms of use, design, story, and gameplay. Now, all of this started quite a long time ago with an obstacle that most people can't remember that well, even though it was quite cool. The tornadoes from Super Mario Bros. 3. These can trap Mario in an air pocket and throw him backwards if he gets too close. The only way to get past one is to run until the power meter is fully charged and then jump into the air before colliding with the tornado. So clearly these are quite a strange obstacle, where you need to properly tackle it, or you will be set back. However, this isn't their only role. In Super Mario Galaxy, you can use tornadoes like this to get higher up or even past certain obstacles. So it can be used to set you back and also help you progress in a level by enhancing your platforming skills. Acting as both a tool and obstacle in a lot of games like Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario Galaxy, and even Super Mario Maker 2, where we saw the twister that's very similar to the tornadoes. And thanks to obstacles like this, Nintendo got the idea of making more enemies and obstacles based around the elements, with this one being the first wind-based. And all of this resulted in an enemy known as the Foosh, a cloud enemy that first appeared in Super Mario 64 and later on in a DS remake. In these games, a single Foosh will blow you and your cap off Tall Mountain, unless you do something about it, of course. However, you can't defeat them. So you basically have to deal with them and make sure you don't fall off. And even if you just lose your cap, you're still at a disadvantage because you take more damage without it. The only one who can walk right past it is Wario in the DS version of the game, and that's only possible because of his metal ability. However, he isn't the only one. Yoshi has the ability to eat it and even defeat it by spewing fire at it. And again, this is only the case in the DS version. Now, their role in the game is quite simple, and again, Nintendo took inspiration from real-life situations in order to build a fun and challenging enemy. However, it could also be that they were inspired by cartoons, because there we also see a lot of enemies similar to this one. In the end, the Foosh is basically the strong winds on top of a mountain that any climber would experience at least once in their life. And in cartoons, they usually turn stuff like this, along with other mundane things like pianos or an oil slick, into a character. So in the end, Nintendo decided to take these concepts and apply them to stuff seen in the Super Mario world. In general, the games have always been cartoony and weird like this. They even put living bombs in the game. So I mean, this isn't very new. And so we got an enemy that's just based on the wind, trying to blow you away time and time again, which also fits with the platforming roots of the franchise. You need to watch out when one of these is following you, because if you jump and they are about to blow you away, it could end badly. In general, it adds more difficulty to quite simple sections of a level, where you just need to jump over a gap or something. And so stuff like that becomes more exciting and challenging. Sure, it can also be very annoying to deal with, but that's the trade-off. Now, like I mentioned before, they are quite cartoonish, and so originally their expression depicts them with large eyebrows, closed eyes, and a feline-shaped mouth with a happy expression. However, in the remake, it has a very angry face, and can even turn around in order to always face the character, blowing wind in your face. So in the remake, they became a lot meaner in terms of look, and also harder to deal with because they can track you more effectively. In general, they were a pain to deal with in Super Mario 64, and this was only the beginning, because in later games they had a similar role but made your life even more of a hell. Because in the next game, Super Mario Sunshine, we come across another type of wind creature that also tries to blow you off ledges. The being I'm talking about is the Wind Spirit, which is a species of enemy that only appears in Sunshine, but it's very similar to the Foosh. Now again, when you're on a high place, a Wind Spirit forms. However, instead of just just blowing wind at you, it does something else. First it will spin around you and then suddenly stops and charges at you. And if it does hit you, it usually knocks you off the platform. Now, unlike the FWOOSH, they can be temporarily dispatched using Flood and be defeated using Yoshi's tongue. So you can get rid of them now at least. Now, overall, anyone who has ever played Super Mario Sunshine will remember this enemy, because it's a huge pain to deal with. This one is even more punishing than the last one because it's a real hard hitter instead of just someone who kind of pushes you back. Especially in Rico Harbor, they can be very annoying because the walkways are very narrow, so you can easily fall off. Now, of course, they were placed in levels like this to annoy you, and also to make the level a whole lot harder. These enemies can fly around in the sky after all, making them a good fit for places with narrow pathways. And while they can be killed now, they are a lot more difficult to deal with than the previous versions seen in Super Mario 64. They are absolute hell, to be honest. Clearly, so far they have become stronger and stronger and stronger and more effective. However, would this continue? Well, actually, no. In general, Super Mario games became a lot easier after this. Take Super Mario Galaxy, for example. That game is nothing compared to Super Mario Sunshine. So of course, this enemy also became a lot less of a challenge. And the Foo is a great example of this happening in the series. These are white cloud-like enemies that first appeared in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. And what they do is produce fog that can obscure your view. That's it. And as you could have imagined, their name comes from the FWOOSH. Now they can be defeated with any kind of attack, so they aren't too strong. And they also can't hurt you, so clearly they are incredibly different now. They are a lot weaker and less annoying. Instead of blowing you off platforms or into gigantic pits, they obscure your view. Now, while the previous versions of this enemy seen in Super Mario 64 and Sunshine could be a bit too much, just because they are so effective at ruining the player's day, these ones aren't effective enough. To be honest, most people are smart enough to see through their cheap tricks. It's just not effective enough at hiding certain pits, enemies, or question mark blocks. And that's mostly because the smoke-alike clouds aren't thick enough and only come into play when you get close to them. So usually you can see perfectly fine before they do anything. And if you didn't pay attention, then you can sort of see through it still. Sometimes when there are a lot of them, it can be sort of effective, although the propeller mushroom can help with this. However, in the end, regardless of all of that, it just ain't enough. All of a sudden, this type of enemy became incredibly weak, and not a challenge at all. And that's mostly because at this point in time, Nintendo was getting more casual friendly. We can all beat around the bush for hours upon hours, but the Wii was a casual man's gaming system. Most titles on it weren't surprisingly difficult. And in the later games where this specific type was also seen, nothing really changed. We only got something new when the 3D games came around the corner. In Super Mario 3D World, we see a new one, the Typhoo. And this one kind of goes back to its roots, while not being too much to handle. Now they appear only in 2 levels, Typhoo Flurries and Gigantic Seasick Wreck, and they function more as an obstacle rather than an enemy. Now they again blow gusts of wind, which can even push projectiles away. So they got quite the lungs, to be honest. However, still, very heavy enemies such as bullies are unaffected by their gust, so they aren't necessarily God. Now most of them are stationary, but some can move left and right while blowing. But you can also do something about them. You can stun them with fireballs and boomerangs, and they can be defeated by a number of power-ups, including the Invincible Mario and Lucky Cat Mario power-ups. Now overall, these enemies aren't as annoying or hard to deal with as the previous versions we talked about. They don't follow you around after all, and are a lot more predictable when it comes to their behavior. So overall, they aren't too bad, and mostly just float in place, blowing wind every now and then, which is only a problem when you get in their way. So they became more of a threat for sure, however they aren't as annoying as their previous incarnations. So overall, it was a huge upgrade in a way. We even saw them in Super Mario Odyssey, where they also had an interesting role. The players could even use them to open up certain pathways or get rid of enemies. Sure, it's nothing massive, but it is a fun little touch. However, this is sadly enough where our story ends. Clearly, wind-based enemies have changed quite a lot, and in some games were even crucial for the design. However, we will never know what happens next. Only time will tell. Hey you there, be sure to click the subscribe button and the little bell. Also check the videos in the upper right corner and leave a lovely little comment. I appreciate it. I love you.